For more on whether the millions spent on the Super Bowl advertising paid off, we welcome Ryan Pamplin, co-founder and chief revenue officer for BrandAds. And welcome to Biz Asia America. So the Super Bowl, I guess, explain to our audience why we're so obsessed, first of all, with all the ads.
Well, I mean, for a lot of us that aren't huge football fans, it's really the reason to watch. And traditionally, the ads have really had this magical element to them and made it really fun to watch. And they've been surprising and very entertaining. And in this case, a little more entertaining than the game.
The amount that was spent, I mean, we often talk about the $3 or $4 million for every 30 seconds. Obviously, that's not going to be the case for every single advertiser. How much was actually spent for the entire game on advertising? And was it all ultimately worth it for these big companies?
Sure. Well, it's hard to say in total what everyone spent. That data's not really public. But what I can tell you is actually that we've been working on a study to measure the effectiveness and particularly the brand lift. And I happen to know some of those results. In fact, 26% of all of the advertisers actually experienced negative brand lift, meaning that people have less intent to purchase their products than before the ads ran. And of course, 74%, the majority, were positive lift. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and it really comes down to the creative execution and the message that the brands delivered.
All right. I think you just said in a really nice way that 26% of the people who paid for those ads just wasted a lot of money. Explain why you're saying that there was a negative connotation to that money or the ad itself. What's the example?
Sure. So, you know, there's a bunch of ads out there. We're not ready to say who had the negative lift quite yet. That'll come out tomorrow in a report we're publishing from BrandAds. But what happened here is people before the game sort of established a baseline and said, you know, we have this intent. We're very likely to purchase a Hyundai. And then afterwards, those same people or other people were surveyed to, you know, find out what their purchase intent was. And in most cases, 74% of the time, people said that they were more likely to purchase it after being exposed to the commercial. But in this almost a quarter of the ads, people actually have a lower likelihood to buy. And in some cases, brands really hurt purchase intent and actually will likely have their sales suffer for a while as a result of a poor ad.
All right. Usually TV networks don't like to hear that. You know, I watched most of the game and I couldn't help but realize that most of the ads, a lot of them were car related. And I wondered, what is the demographic of the audience that they're trying to reach with the Super Bowl?
Sure. Well, you know, the Super Bowl really reaches all of America. It's really representing everyone. It's unlike any other football game or any other television event. There's really no other way in the world to reach over 100 million people all at once like that. And that's why brands are willing to pay the big bucks. And overall, it is a very good return on investment for most brands.
Which was the best ad in your opinion?
Oh, the best ad in my opinion. Well, my opinion is actually that I loved one of the ads that ran right after. It was the very first ad after the Super Bowl. It was the Esurance ad where they had Jim from The Office, and he's sitting there with $1.5 million, and he's saying, you know, we saved $1.5 million by buying the commercial right after, and we're going to give this money away, and this represents the money that we save, you know, you on your car insurance in proportion to what we saved on this commercial. I thought that was so clever and such a fantastic execution. I also really loved the Stephen Colbert ad. They did two right in a row. So one, it was kind of bland and boring. Another ad ran. 30 seconds later, he's back and he said, the first ad was just a joke. And then he cracks his head open and a pistachio nut is inside. I mean, that blew my mind.
Back to the business of the Super Bowl. There's,
Sure.
Of course, the pregame show, the beginning of the football game, the halftime show, and then, of course, everything afterwards. This particular game was a blowout. And from a lot of folks that I spoke to in the newsroom, they essentially stopped watching after the halftime show. How does that impact the advertisers who are expecting a certain number of viewers, but, of course, a lot of them drop off because the game is no longer interesting?
They got burned. And that really is unfortunate for them. You know, those third quarter and fourth quarter advertisers, they spent a lot of money, just as much as the first quarter and second quarter guys, and they did not get the same kind of value. Particularly, I felt bad with the Bob Dylan spot. You know, they spent $16 million on that spot, estimated according to reports I've seen. And that's a lot of money to spend at a time in the game when I think a huge proportion of that audience you were hoping to reach and planning to reach had already dropped off and stopped paying attention.
When you look at the Super Bowl, this is the first time the Super Bowl was played in an outdoor stadium. The two teams, Denver and Seattle, aren't from major areas or populated areas in the U.S. Is there a way that advertisers can hedge against the fact whether or not the Super Bowl will be a very big game, or sometimes maybe like yesterday, only half the game was interesting?
I think it's inherently going to be a gamble, and I think the fortunate thing is it's the one time per year that all of us decide to tune in and actually watch the ads and pay attention. But I will tell you that I felt like there was a little bit of magic lost this year. It's almost as if the network told all the advertisers to tone it down on the sex appeal, and they couldn't figure out how to make the ads interesting to watch without that. So I actually thought it was a little bit disappointing, and viewership was actually down a little bit this year versus last year. And I think if the ads continue to be disappointing next year, this downward trend in viewership may actually continue.
The winner might be even the halftime show. Ryan Pamplin, thank you very much for joining
Thanks.
us on Biz Asia America.